All right, I finally got like a lot of footage, um, more than 15 minutes, and I wanted to talk a little bit about 420. It's known as a weed holiday, and I didn't smoke this 420. Um, I just want to talk a little bit about that. Um, I stopped smoking weed um, a while ago, honestly, and I smoked weed a little bit in college. Um, and I always knew that, like, oh, okay, like, this is okay while I'm doing it now, but after, um, you know, I'm gonna go weed free. And I'm pretty glad that I made that decision. Um, I do think that it messed with my studies and my motivation. I talked a little bit about like dopamine buttons before, the idea that anything that like gives you that instant gratification as opposed to delayed gratification, you have to be like really careful about, especially when it comes to very addictive stuff. People say that like weed isn't addictive. I just did not believe that. um, I definitely think that weed is addictive, and a lot of people need to like evaluate their relationship with it. But yeah, it really it took away a lot of my motivation. I do agree with that, like stereotype. Um, I think the biggest thing is, when I was younger, I really hated having people tell me what to do. Um, and like, I don't know, like anti-establishment, people were telling me, oh, I don't know, whenever people I don't know, I just didn't enjoy people like telling me what I can't do. And I also did, like, I don't know, I kind of thought it was just nice to not like hold myself back purposefully, or like, I don't know, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But maybe it did feel better that like, oh, I got like a B in the class. It's like, oh well, if I didn't smoke, I could have gotten an A, or if I like tried harder, blah blah blah. It made me like it was like a protection mechanism, you know, uh, to make me feel better about myself when I failed. So I think that I just needed to like try harder and like really apply myself more, and you know, I needed to stop like having any crutches, anything that's holding me back. And I think that's like a big thing that I've been like doing lately. No more like talking about things about what I wanted to do or whatever, and just do it and just do the thing. So I think that I've made a lot of progress as far as like my cognition goes, like how I think and how I think about how I think, like metacognition. I put like a lot more thought and effort into all of that. But I will say, like, a lot of the stuff, um, like people just like, oh, I never really liked the whole stereotype, like, oh, weed makes you stupid, weed makes you lazy, weed makes you blah, 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 blah. Hippie, liberal, like a lot of, oh, like a gateway drug. I never did any of the hard drugs. I never was, you know, I see people in the ER all the time on all this crazy stuff, and I never even thought about it. But yeah. Anyway, I tried it after weed was legalized in California. I was in college at the time. I do think it's kind of funny. I was like, oh, I don't want people to tell me what to do, but I waited until weed was legalized to ever try it. I never did in high school, even though I was around it a lot. Um, but yeah, that's a little bit about the history. But yeah, the 420 this year, no weed. And I honestly think I'll never smoke weed again in my life, and I'm very like at ease with that decision. I really think that my thoughts have gotten a lot more clear, and my motivation. It was like a fun thing to do. I'm not gonna lie, like, it was enjoyable. I remember, like, I would just, like, sit alone by myself. Of course, like, I'd like to do things like watch movies and talk to my friends, those things. But I remember probably, like, the biggest thing is, like, I could just sit alone by myself and just, like, laugh. Like, all my thoughts became very funny. And it became very, like, I don't know. It's a very slippery slope. As soon as you, like, everything becomes more fun when you do it, but because everything becomes more fun, whenever you're not high, it becomes like, oh, everything becomes lame, dull. So that's how it very quickly becomes a crutch, that instant gratification that you seek. But, I definitely made, like, a lot of friends from it. I still hang out with them all the time, and I think that's one of the things, like, oh, like, that held back, like, a lot of other people. I never worried about that stuff. Like, my friends and I all love each other a lot for a lot of reasons. So as soon as I was like, oh, hey, like, by the way, I'm never going to smoke weed again, guys, they were all very, like, understanding, They say, like, oh, like, I really hope I'm not, like, peer pressuring you or, like, smoking in front of you. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, it really is. I never really, like, felt contempt. I was never angry at them or anything. And they were never, like, upset by me about it either. I do know that, like, there's a lot of people that, like, say, like, you see, running these friend groups, like, oh, you're not, like, actually friends with them. They only like you because you have, like, this similar interest. But no, I never even worried about that with my friends. We all get along really well for a lot of reasons. But yeah, I will say, I was able to make a lot of friends off of it, and I had some good memories, some very good times. Well, I will say, 420 is also the death anniversary, of when my grandma passed away. That's also a memory I have of this day specifically, which is kind of funny. I did grow up in a very anti-weed household, so my family did not enjoy that. Me smoking in college. But yeah, now at this point, like, waking up in the morning, like, I'm pretty much just, like, thinking about, like, I don't know, like, it's like these habits that you establish, they do run very deep, once you really get a habit going, then everything else just becomes a lot easier. So, yeah. This is kind of a hard video. I mean, nobody even watches this, but at some point, a future employer is probably going to be listening to this right now. Hi, guys. How's it going? Yeah. So this is definitely, like, a tough video to record, but it's something that I really did want to talk about. I've always been thinking about, like, oh, when's going to be the perfect time to talk about this thing? And 420, easily the best day. Yeah, I also, I'm a big fan of Channel 5, Andrew Callahan's videos. I think that the journalism is very good. This is not an endorsement of Andrew Callahan. But the journalism that was done by Channel 5 on Dare, I think that they brought up a really good point about how, they always, like, say weed's like a gateway drug, and they say, like, it's very, very bad. And all these, like, propaganda points that people have been saying forever. And Andrew says, oh, well, I think people need to recognize that it's kind of just fun, and that's why people do it. And, like, this is not, like, nothing more deep than that. And I totally agree. I very much agree with that statement. Like, this idea that, like, oh, people, like, are using it to run away from their problems, and they all have like deep psychological issues. And like they're trying to like fill holes in them that can only be done by deep introspection. Well, I do think there's some truth to that, especially when people like let fall into addiction and let it consume themselves. I just think people with like emotional trauma might be more susceptible to that, but I don't think that like it's a common factor between all people who smoke weed specifically. I'm talking about weed. Yeah, I just did it to like hang out with friends. I mean, this is Los Angeles. It's a very like weed friendly place. I had the day off of work, and I got to go to a market with my friends, and it was a weed inspired market. You know, they had like dispensaries set up their little shops there, and they had like weed inspired food and all this like crazy like weed stuff. And I just remember thinking like this used to be like illegal, you know, like not very long ago. 2019 I think is when it was legalized. 2018. Yeah. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get across is, you know, like it's kind of crazy. Like there are people in jail for this stuff, and this is like an event, 420 event. But also, like, you know, this is Los Angeles. It's a very different, you know, culture. A lot of like West Coast movies, rap, you know, has like weed in it. So yeah, I definitely think I was like, I was like susceptible to the peer pressure, I will say. A younger me. I wasn't doing it just to get along, but it definitely, no, I definitely did it to get along. I will say that. So yeah, I thought it's crazy. I also will say about that event, it was a lot of white faces, you know. There were a few black people there, of course, but I don't know. It always makes me feel some type of way, especially like a lot of like when weed was illegal, it was a lot of black people growing it and selling it. And ever since the weed has been legalized, there's not a whole lot of black-owned dispensaries. You know, there's a huge market, very profitable, and a lot of very like rich white people invested a lot into marijuana because they saw how profitable it could be, and you know, black people were the people that like were taken out, and of course like all the people in jail for, you know, drug charges as well. You know, there's a whole lot of meta-analysis. It's very much beyond the scope of this video. But I just wanted to talk specifically today about how I feel a lot better. Now that I don't. And I will say, like, the cravings have pretty much gone away. I mean, 420, I felt it. But that was just because I was, like, really surrounded by it. Still didn't cave or anything. But, like, I never really, like, after a certain amount of time, it just, you know, the cravings go away. It gets a way easier after a certain point. You know, probably like after like maybe like 3 weeks, honestly. Whenever like, I don't know, I would be in a situation where like, oh, like I could smoke weed right now, and you know, you stop thinking like that, you know. So yes, I don't think that I've like, I will say I guess there's partial truth to like using drugs to run away from your problems. It's definitely not like common for everyone, but I do say I have gotten better about it. You know, I found a lot better ways to de-stress, specifically with exercise. That's really helped with like insomnia and, you know, coming off of work. Like I had a 12-hour shift today. I'm going to sleep so well right now. You might kind of sense that I'm tired. But yes, I personally have gotten a lot better as far as like finding ways to handle stress, healthier coping mechanisms. I have definitely like gotten a lot better about that, and it's something I really do take some pride in, being a little bit more healthy, finding better ways to deal with my problems. So yeah, that's pretty much the video. I think I got across all the points that I wanted to. Of course, this is not like holier than thou. I do have holier than thou thoughts about other things, but this isn't like, I don't judge people who smoke weed. I get it. But that's just not me anymore. Happy 420 to all people who celebrate. I'll see you guys tomorrow.